Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Kiddushin Daf Amud Aleph 8a1 says the Gemara. You just spoke about that Shaveh Kesef has to be something which is kites, which is a proper amount, like an exact amount. It has a set amount. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, says of Yosef, Mena Mina Allah, how do we know this concept? The Tanya, it says in the Braita, Mikesef Miknato. What does that mean, Mikesef Miknato? When it says Mikesef Miknato, Bekesef hu nikne, which means you could buy an Eved Ivri with Kesef, ve'eno nikne, and he's not going to be acquired bitvu'ah ve'chelim, with tivu'ah or kelim, which means you can only acquire him with money, not with grains or utensils. So says the Gemara, Hai tivu'ah ve'kelim ha'echida. What's the case that an Eved cannot be acquired with tivu'ah and kelim? Hechidami. Ilema, if you're going to tell me, right, that he's not going to acquire it at all, which means that he cannot be with Shubarim only with money, Yashiv Giulato, Marachmana. When it says in the Torah, Yashiv Giulato, we come and we make a dirasha on Yashiv Giulato, Lerabot Shaveh Kesef Kekesef, to tell you that Shaveh Kesef is like Kesef, which means anything that has value of money is like money. So if you wanted your silk garment, right, that's the exact same thing, that's money. At the end of the day, it's money, right? You could have a watch, it's a lot of money. Yeah, you have money. Shaveh Kesef is like Kesef. So he says, now if you're going to tell me that it does not have a Shaveh Pruta, so my idia, Tevuah ve'kelim, afilu Kesef nami. So even by Kesef nami is going to be the same thing, right? Even by Kesef is going to be the same thing, which means that what we're trying to say is that we know that if something's not Shaveh Pruta, you can't get married with it, right? Shaveh Pruta nowadays is nothing. It's like we're talking about even less than $1. But imagine if it's going to be less than that, zeklum, zechien, less than. I told you it's less than $1. It's mamash kima klum, right? That's what I'm saying. It's less than $1, right? It's mamash. It's hardly anything, right? That's the entire concept, right? So he comes and he says, "Ela lav barada the it behu sheva pruta," that it has a sheva pruta. The kevan de lo kaitse, and since right, it's not a fixed amount, meaning tevuah vekelim, it is a shaveh pruta. The kevan de lo kaitse, right? But since it's not going to be fixed. Low. That's what we said. You cannot what? You cannot acquire with them. Meaning it's a special deed that you cannot acquire, right, with them. Yeah. And the other one, which is going to be Rabbi, that he says that you can acquire b'shaveh kesef, also if the money is not known. Hachi kamar. This is what it means to say in the Braita. B'torat kesef unikne, which means an eved is going to be acquired through kinyan kesef. Ve'nikne b'torat tevuah vekelim. But he cannot be acquired with the Torah of Tevuah Kelim. What is the Torah of? Meaning, we're not talking about Tevuah Kelim. Tevuah Kelim, you could acquire an Eved with, right? Just like you could acquire with Kesef. It's Torat Kesef and Torat Tevuah Kelim. What is Torat Kesef? Kesef. What is the Torah Tevuah Kelim? Ma'inihu Chalipin. Chalipin, remember, was a switching of an object. So, for example, I'm going to take his watch, and by coming and taking his watch, he acquires my chamor, right? We switch. That's called chalipin. So that concept, right? I guess if you want to call it, yeah. So he comes and he says the concept of chalipin is not going to work by an eved, because if you remember, chalipin was very different than anything else. Why? Because chalipin works on something which is. Why cannot you get married to a woman with chalipin? כסף זה היה אחד מהם, לא חליפין. Why not חליפין? צריך לקנות אותם, לא? He comes and he says that we're talking about the entire concept that it's not going to be chalipin b'shaveh kesef, meaning you could do chalipin on even something which is going to be less than shaveh pruta, and therefore you cannot do marriage with chalipin, nor can you come and do right the buying of the Eved Ivri with the chalipin as well. Says the Gemara, Rav Nachman, and according to Rav Nachman, the Amar Perot love the chalipin, that he says the Perot you cannot do chalipin. So then what are you going to say then? Right? Michael, what are you going to say? But you just told me Tevuah vekelim, right? And therefore here anyway you can do it. So Michael, so then what's the chidush then? He comes and he says, Ela leolam delebe shaveh pruta. Really we're talking about it's less than a pruta, shaveh pruta. Udkamarta Maidia. So why did you say Tuva Kelim even Kesef Nami if it's going to be less than Shaveh Pruta doesn't help? Lomi Baya Kamar. Sometimes the Gemara uses the way of learning, which is you don't have to even say this, but even this. Meaning Lomi Baya Kamar. What does that mean? Lomi Baya Kesef. Not only in a case by money, that you don't have to mention it, that what? Dit Shaveh Pruta in Lolo, that if it has a Shaveh Pruta, you could use it for marriage, or you could use it for acquiring an Eved. And if it does not, you're not allowed to. Aval Tivua Vekelim, but by Tivua Vekelim. Ema, I would say, mean the Mekarva Hana'atayhu. Since you're bringing the Hana'a closer, Gamar Umakne Nafsheh. He's acquiring himself to him. Kamashmalan comes to teach you, right, that we do not say that. The concept of Mekarva Hana'a Gabayhu, we could explain it according to the famous Gemara. If I remember, I think it's Ketubot Samachbet. It was to do with Mor Ukva. Mor Ukva, right? If you remember, he used to give tzedakah to the poor person. He used to throw it into the house, and then he used to through the mailbox, the little tiny thing, and then he used to run, right? He used to go away. What happened was that once the guy wanted to know who's the one that's giving him money. What happened was is all of a sudden Mor Ukva comes. He's going to put the money inside. And all of a sudden he hears a noise. He realizes that they're going to come and they're going to open up the door. Now, it takes a few seconds to open up the door and everything. He starts running with his wife. And what happened was that they had nowhere where to run. They got to basically a debt, and they jumped into an oven. And what happened was that when they jumped into the oven, they learned it from the Gemara that a person should always jump into a furnace and not embarrass their friend. So here, it was the same type of a concept. At the end of the day, right, it's ki'ilu that a person's coming, right? And, they're like embarrassing their friends. Yeah? Why? Because now they knows exactly, right, who's giving him the tzedakah. So when he jumped into the oven, a miracle happened that he didn't get burnt and his wife didn't get burnt, but there was one difference. His feet were burning a little bit. His wife's were not. So the wife told him, put your feet on my feet. Yeah? And therefore, by coming and putting his feet on her feet, he wasn't getting burnt his feet. So the question was, the Gemara asks, why is it that her zechut was greater than his zechut? And the Gemara answers,
that you would not go out,
give food to poor people and not money.
She's mekarva hana'a legabayhu, meaning a man, he doesn't give the bread, he gives money. Now the ani comes and he's going to have to buy the food. She used to give the bread itself. She used to give the food. It's already ready. The ani doesn't have to be toreach. He doesn't have to come and start going to look for food or to buy food. So that's called mekarva hana'a legabayu, which means she's giving the ani a bigger hana'a. So her merit was stronger than her husband's merit, and therefore she wasn't getting burnt, and the husband, only his feet were getting burnt. So now, says the Gemara, the exact same thing by us. What does that mean by us? Says the Gemara, by us, we know, lomi by, not only in the case of kesef, that if it's not shaveh pruta, if it's shaveh pruta, it helps, and if it's not shaveh pruta, it doesn't help. But even by tivua vekelim, that you're giving the guy tivua, and you're giving him fruits. So remember, tivua is called perot haaretz. Perot haaretz is not only fruit. Grains are called fruits, right? So therefore, that's what you call priya adama. It's even grains, right? Or priya etz, right? There are not only just fruits, it's even perot haaretz, which is going to be even types of grains. So therefore, since they're coming and they're going to be mikarva hana'ah, I would have thought to say gamar umakne nafshe, which means the eved bedato is maskim to be makne, right? With this, right? With this concept. Kamashmalan comes to teach you, right? That we do not say that. Okay? We do not say that. Amar of Yosef, says of Yosef, Mena Amina La. How do we know that Bigdem Meshi, you have to come and that means basically still clothing. How do we know you have to come and you're going to be ma'arichotam, which means you have to evaluate them before the Kiddushin? The Tanas we learned in a Braita. Egel ze lepidyon beni. Right? When a person is going to come and he's going to give an egel or a talit to the Kohen, and he says, this egel is for pidyon ben. Right? Imagine the Kohen is waiting for good money, and instead of getting the good money, the guy comes and he gives him an egel. Right? He gives him a talit. Yeah? And he says, egel ze lepidyon beni, or talit ze lepidyon beni, lo amar kelum. He did not say anything.
Who didn't say?
Right? The guy, his son is not redeemed. Egel ze bechamesh slaim the pidyon bani. But if he comes and he says this egel is for the 5 slaim for the pidyon ben, or talitzu bechamesh slaim the pidyon bani, beno padui, then it does help. Why? What is the pidyon exactly they were talking about? If you're going to tell me that it's not shaveh the chamesh slaim, so kol kimine, can he do that? Meaning, can this guy come and cheat out the Kohen? Right? He's got a kombina, right? They're experts at this, yeah? Kombinot, right? Yisalim, yeah? What happens? They come, right? And what happens is a kombina, right? Abarja. What's abarja? Very simple. I don't want to give you now, right, the 5 slaim. So what do? I give you a cup of coffee. I say, well, you know how much that cup of coffee is worth? It's yeah. So says the Gemara.
Starbucks is 5 slaim.
Exactly. So says the Gemara, kol kiminek, and he has the power to do so. Elalav berava. Afal gav de shavi, even though it's going to be shaveh, right? He comes and he says like this, even though it's going to be shaveh, right? The kevin de lo kaitzi lo. What does that mean? He comes and he says, even though if it is shaveh the chamesh slaim, since it's not a fixed price, you can't use it. That's why. The exact same thing. That means just like by the pidyon ben is the exact same, just like we mentioned by David. What does that mean? Since it doesn't have a fixed price, we don't want to come and say, you know what, you're able to do the pidyon ben with something that doesn't have I want a fixed price. I want something that has a fixed price. So says the Gemara, no, it's not true. Why? Leolam de lo shavi. Really, behemet, it wasn't worth the 5 slain. But the Kohen accepted it. Meaning, what does that mean? Sometimes you accept it, and you accept the price. Yeah, this coffee is worth $4. I come, I give him 3. He gives me a coffee. What does that mean? He accepted the price. Okay? And therefore, once he accepts the price, that's it. Just like Rav Kahana, he was maskim to take a sudar, right? Which was a little bit less than the 5 slaim for pidyon ben. Amar le, he said, ledidi chazili 5 slaim. So he went and he told to the father, for me, this is worth the 5 slaim. Meaning that the Kohen went and he said, you know what? For me, I don't need anything else. Right? That means this is already good. I don't need it. Okay? Okay? Ravashi comes and he says the following. Lo amaran, we didn't say that a person has to evaluate, right? Whether it's going to be that a person could say that it's actually worth more or whatever it is for the pidyon ben or other things. Ela kegon Rav Kahana. Somebody like Rav Kahana. The Gavra Rabbahu, right? Because he's a Gavra Rabbah, umibaile sudara areshe, and he needs a sudar on his head because he's an Adam Gadol to go out to the shuk, which means a minhag. And by the way, this was a minhag, right, by the Moroccans. Do you know that there was a minhag a long time ago that a lot of people, they wouldn't even wear talit, right? They wouldn't wear talit, right? Talit wasn't, they wouldn't wear it. What was the sign of a person receiving semicha?
That's why we covered it in Tefillah. We do it.
You put the talit on the
that's why
head.
they used to put it after.
The talit on the head was a sign of a person receiving semicha. Yeah, that's how they were receiving semicha. That's why in Morocco, right, you could go around, nobody would put the talit on their head unless they had semicha. Yeah, and until today, the majority of Gibraltar, right, we're talking like 95%, are exactly like that. Nowadays, what happens is people go out of town. They go to Oziel, they go to England, and there everybody puts that. So they start doing it. And then when they come back, they want to, slip it in. You know what? I always did it. Yeah. But technically speaking, right, that wasn't minhag. Why? Because that was the way of doing it. Rav Kahana was that. Rav Kahana was a Gavra Rabbah. He needed this sudar because the sudar was what he used to put on his head. So for him, it was worth it. Meaning for him, because he needed it, it was worth it. But for example, a guy that doesn't, it's not worth the 5 slain. So it's not worth it. So what's going on then? Avakule alma lo, but not. So that means this is a special dinner of Kahana. Rav Kahana could accept himself a sudar and say that even though it's not worth 5 slain, for me it is worth slain because he needs it. But if he doesn't need it, it doesn't work. Ki had more baravashi zavan sudara miime de rabba mikube shave asara betleisar. Just like the story of Mor Baravashi that he bought from the mother of Rabba from the Eid of Kubi, he bought 1 sudar that was worth 10 dinarim for 13 dinarim. So you see from here that many times when you need something, even though it's above the real price, this is what you need. And sometimes it happens. For example, right, we want to buy a building. right? And the building, technically speaking, maybe it's only worth 9 million. Maybe it's only worth 10 million. But at the end of the day, you need it.
Premium.
Once you need it, so sometimes you're going to have to pay more than the true value of what it is. Why? Because that's what you need. And that's what the Gemara is coming and teaching us. So it's completely different. The case of, meaning you cannot bring me a case, a proof from the case of Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana's, it's not the same thing. It's not the same case. So I can't come and bring me a proof. Rav Kahana showed you that, but since I can accept it and say it's worth less, even though it's worth more. Meaning, I can say it's worth more, even though it's worth less. You can't bring a proof from that. It's something completely different.
So the person giving it can also know who's weaker on what they need.
Yeah, 100%. But in this case, that's what we're saying. Since he was a rabbi, he needed the Sudan, and therefore you cannot bring any proof from him. Says the Gemara. Okay, now we're going to bring another psak. The psak is Amar Bilazar, says Bilazar, Hitkachi li b'maneh v'natan la dinar. Imagine right now, right? A person comes and he tells a woman, "You're going to get married to me with 100 dinare kesef," and then he only gave her 1 dinar. Harezu mikudeshet. She's going to be mikudeshet v'yashlim, and he has to be mashlim all the rest. Meaning, imagine I come and I tell her, "You know what? I'm going to get married to me with $1,000." He gives her 100. Says the Gemara, she's married. But he has to be mashlim the rest of the money. One second. Says the Gemara, or $1 for $100. The same thing. My tama, what's the reasoning? Why is it that it's a good kiddushin immediately? Ta'amar, right? Kema da'amar la, because once he said maneh, fiyahav le dinar. So once he said a maneh, and immediately he gave her a dinar, keman de'amar la al menat dami. It's ki'ilu, he went and he said, right, that the ki'ilu, since it was done immediately, so therefore it was ki'ilu, he's coming and saying it was on condition. What was the condition? I'm going to pay you little by little. Meaning he's not retracting on that, what he said. At the end of the day, he said, I'm going to get married to you for $1,000, right, for the maneh, which is even 100 dinari, right? But the concept was that now that it's going to be al menat dami. Ve'amar Ravuna amar Rav, says Ravuna Rav, kol ha'omer al menat, ki omer me'achshav dami. That's ki'ilu that he said, al menat. So as long as he's going to come and he's going to be mashlim, so therefore there's no going to be any problem. 1 second. Doesn't matter, but he was a maneh. He was a maneh. He told him 1 maneh, which is 100 dinar. Okay. So says the Gemara, it's like $1 for the $100 bill. It's the exact same. So says the Gemara, it's not a different currency. It's a different evaluation in the currency, the same currency. So matevei. So we're going to ask the question. Imagine a person comes and he tells her, okay, fine, get married to me with a moneh, and he starts counting the dinarim. V'ratza echad mehem, right? Lachzor. And then one of them wants to retract. Va'afilu bedinar acharon. Even on the last dinar, hareshu biyado, they're allowed. Which means like this. Imagine right now I come and I say, okay, fine, you're going to get married to me with $100. Yeah, and all of a sudden, I start counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
99.
Even until 99, all of a sudden the woman says, I retract. Or the man could say, I retract. Okay. Why? Because since you didn't finish, you could retract. So says the Gemara, 1 second, this is a question. Why is this a question? You see from here that the kiddushin is not chal until the last dollar. You're telling me from now that the kiddushin is going to be chal from the beginning, because he said maneh, then he gave her $1. Here, what we're trying to say though is that it's not nothing. So what's going on then? So what are we dealing with? De'amar b'maneh zo. He said with this maneh. If a person comes and he has a maneh in his hand, and then he comes and he says, you're going to get married to me with this, in this case, lo hayta dato litkadesh ela bekulo, with the entire amount. And therefore, both of them could retract until the last dinar. Because when you say b'maneh zo, with this, it's this. It's not something else. If I just say b'maneh, it could be this $100 bill, that $100 bill, $100 bill that he has, right? He's got a lot of $100 bills, right? Yeah. So therefore, that's why he comes and he says, when you say maneh zo, it has to be this one. And therefore, until the last dollar, there's no marriage. Okay? So says the Gemara.
They're together, it's okay?
Yeah, no. What do you mean? The seifa, that which we learned in a seifa, b'mana zo. What does it mean, maneh zo? We're talking about that this maneh, Reisha, the manestam. So therefore, obviously, the Reisha was talking about manestam. Tekatani seifa, because the seifa says Amar la itkachili b'manazo. If you're going to get married to me with this money, then imsa maneh chaser dinar. And then it came out that it was actually lacking. All dinar shel nechoshet, there was one which was out of copper instead of the real metal, and therefore she's not going to be mekudeshet. Dinar ra, but if it's going to be a dinar ra, she is mekudeshet. But he just has to switch it with a good dinar. So it comes out that one more time. The Gemara is going to ask, and you just said that we're talking about dafka manezo. If you're telling me manezo, which was the seifa, so the reisha is mashma, not manezo, some manestam. Now, if you're going to come and you're going to bring me, right, a proof to what we just said, look what happened in the seifa. The seifa says, when you see kachili b'manezo, right, you're saying manezo, and it came out, it was chaser dinar. So obviously it's lacking. You don't have the $100, you only had a 99, right? Or what happens if one of the dinars is made out of nechoshet, which means it's like counterfeit. It's not the real dinar. So therefore it's not good. But what happens if it was a bad dinar? You know, sometimes you get a bill and it's like, sometimes counterfeit, but it's not where you get a coin, which is very, very, you just don't. So there, you mekudesh it, but you switch it. You just obligated to switch it, and then that's it. So says the Gemara, no, you're right. Reisha and Seifa is talking about manezo, because we wanted to say that the Seifa is manezo and Reisha is manestam. Now we're trying to say, no. Everything is manezo. Uparushe kamefaresh. Right? But really, be'emet, the Seifa is coming to explain the Reisha. This is the way that we have to say it. If one of them want to retract, even in the last dinar, you're allowed to. What's the case? For example, the manezo. Because once you say manezo, it has to be this $100. So therefore, if you're counting it up, you could retract. And by the way, that could happen anything. I want to right now buy from you something. I come and I start counting the dollars. And then I say, you know what? Forget about it. Look, take it, go. It's no problem. I didn't finish the deal. Right? Until the last pruta, I didn't finish the deal. So therefore, the exact same thing. Doesn't matter. Even if you started counting the hundreds. Doesn't matter. As long as you're not until the last dollar, you're allowed to retract. What? It's not a layaway. Until I don't finish the transaction, there's no deal. So I didn't finish the transaction.
So he can get married with her within the year if he doesn't finish to pay it by the year?
No. Again, remember, we're talking about here the difference whether it's going to be a t'nai or not a t'nai. If he said manes tam, and then he gave her 1 dinar, he's married immediately, and then he just comes and pays tashlumim. If he tells her zo, it's a problem, because that means it has to be this money. And as long as he doesn't give her the full money right now, it's a problem. And this is also logical. If you're going to tell me now, reisha b'manes tam, but the reisha is talking about manes tam, hashta b'manes tam lo v'kiddushe. If you're going to tell me manes tam, it's not going to be a kiddushin, right? B'manes zo, are you going to tell me now manes zo is going to be a question whether it's going to be a kiddushin or not? He says at the end of the day, he didn't get the full money. So kal v'chomer, right, in a manes tam, ella, he comes and he says, mishum ha lo idia. You're right. We're going to push away the proof. How are we pushing the proof? Tana seifa legaluye resha. The seifa is coming to reveal to you what is the pirush of the reisha. Shelotumar, don't say that the reisha is sama manezo, but in manestam it is going to be a kiddushin. Tana seifa manezo mikal the reisha manestam, and still it's not going to be a good kiddushin until she's going to get the dinar acharon. Meaning until she doesn't get the last dollar, it's a klum, it's a shum davar. Okay, that is the way that we're learning it until now. Now Ravashi is going to come and he's going to teach another way that the Reish of the Braita is talking about Kiddushim Stam, not Manezo, but Moneh ve'olech shane, Tedata akule. There's a very big difference between counting and not counting. Why? When you come and you start counting something, I want until the last dollar, because you start counting it. But if I come and I tell you, listen, I'm going to give you $1,000, I give you 100, you don't have to count anything. You already know you're not giving me the 1,000 now. So therefore, obviously, it means that you're going to, a payment plan. You understand? That's what it means. But if I'm going to start counting, okay, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, I want the entire thing. So therefore, the dot is going to be on the entire amount. Okay, fine. Let's go back to the Braita that we said. We spoke about, we said that if right now he came and he gave her the money, and it was chaser, she's not mekudeshet. If it was nechoshet, not mekudeshet. If it's a dinar ra, then she's mekudeshet and replace. Dinar, right? Dinar ra. But nechoshet, no. Says the Gemara, hi dinar shenechoshet. What is the case of dinar shenechoshet? If she knows, that means when they're coming there, So she knows that it's av nechoshet, hasavra v'kibla. She accepted it. She accepted it. It looks different. She accepted it. So answers the Gemara, Latzricha diavani ala belelia. No, he gave it to her at nighttime. So therefore, since he gave it to her at nighttime, is your abarja here, yeah? So therefore, she couldn't see it properly, right? Inama dishtaka la benezuze, or she gave it to him with all the other dinarim, and it was meurav. So when you give it meurav, right, you can't come and you can't recognize it. Meaning, there's so many coins together. It's very difficult. Many times, by the way, it happens. Right, when you get to the kaman, you've got tons of coins. You have to do one by one. Why? Because many times it looks like a 10 cent, and really by meant you turned it over, it was a 5 cent of Britain, or it was a 10 cents of Canadian, or it was meaning like all these different things. Many times they look very similar, right? And when they look similar, really by meant it's going to be a different halacha. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara. Hi dinara. What's the case of dinara? He says, if you're going to tell me right now that what happened was that it does not go out, which means that it's not going to be used, so it's like a nechoshet. Meaning, imagine right now you're going to have a dollar bill, right? I'm just use a dollar, but let's say even $100 bill. You come, you use it, and they're not going to accept it. So then that's like nechoshet. What's the difference between a dinar ra and nechoshet? It's the exact same thing. One is copper, and it's not really like the silver that they use, right? And the other one, right, is they're both not accepted. So I know dinar shenechoshet. Some of Papa, no, it is accepted, but meaning in certain places they will accept it, certain they won't. So it is accepted, right? But not in every store. So not in every store. Sometimes it happens. You go to a certain store.
In Israel, it's very simple. The old $100 bill, no change store
will accept it.
But if you go to a bank in Israel, they
will accept it. Exactly. Okay. Very good.
But it's very interesting.
Rabba Amar Rav Nachman. Says Rav in the name of the Rav Nachman. Amar life. He comes and he tells a woman, he kachi li b'maneh, that get to me, married to me with a maneh. And he gave her a mashkon. He gave her a security. Okay, that means he didn't actually give her the money, but he gave her a security. Ena mekudeshet. She's not married. Meaning through a mashkon, it's not, right? So he says, why? Maneh enkan. Because at the end of the day, he told her he was going to give her a meneh. He didn't give her a meneh. He gave her a mashkon. And mashkon enkan. And the mashkon is also not worth anything. Why? Because he didn't give it to her as a matana. He gave it to her as an aravut, like as a guarantor, as a guarantee. So therefore, he doesn't get the mashkon, and she doesn't get the money. So she's got nothing. So that's why Ena Mekudeshet. So Chetam Ubet, 8b, says the Gemara, 8b, Rabba Nachman, asks Rabba to Rav Nachman, Kidsha b'mashkon, right? If right now, right, he was Mekadesh Ota b'mashkon, Mekudeshet. So what's going on? If he's Mekadesh Ota b'mashkon, it is a good Kiddushin. Answers the Gemara, Hatam b'mashkon da'acherim. There we're talking about, it's a mashkon, right, which was a chov to other people. And therefore he gave her the mashkon, and he was Mekadesh Ota with a chov that it had. So in such a case, right, just like Rabbi Yitzchak, the Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says Rabbi Yitzchak, Minayin lebalchov shekone mashkon. How do we know that a balchov can acquire a mashkon, which means that the mashkon is considered kilu, that it's kanui to him. So for example, I borrow from him money, and then I give him a watch. The watch is a mashkon. Now that I'm going to pay it back. How do we know that that watch is like acquired to him? It's like his. How do we know? Shnemar ulcha tiyeh tzedakah. When you come and you lend money to the poor person, it says the nalacha, now it was like a beged laila. So it says you have to give it back to him in the nighttime so he could go to sleep with it. Now, if you're going to do tzedakah. Now the question is, one second, if it's not yours, what tzedakah are you doing? V'imeno koneh, if you're not going to be koneh, tzedakah, why is it considered tzedakah? Mikan, from here we learn lebalchol shekoneh mashkon, that you actually acquire the mashkon. The mashkon is yours. So for you have to do tzedakah with the ani to give it back to him, even though it's his, it was only a mashkon, in order that he could sleep with it. So that's the proof that you actually acquire the mashkon. And therefore, if you're going to be mekadesh a woman with the mashkon, yeah, it's going to help. Everyone understood what happened? One more time. Ronen lent me $1,000. I gave him my watch. Yeah, he took this watch and was mekadesh a woman with it. Not that he told the woman, I'm going to give you $1,000 to get married to me, and then I'm going to give you a mashkon, that I'm going to pay you the $1,000. That doesn't help. That was the previous case. That doesn't help. Here we're talking about Ronen comes and he takes my watch, which was the mashkon, because I own the money, and he takes my watch and he tells the woman, you're going to be Mekadesh with this mashkon. It helps. Why? Because the mashkon is his. And he's giving her the mashkon. Okay? So says the Gemara, yeah? The Gemara is going to bring another case, which is going to be very similar. Bene Ravuna bar Avin Zavina hi amata beprite. Right? They went and they were misakem with one of the first people to purchase a shivcha kenanit with prutot of nechoshet. Lo v'bayadayu, but they didn't have mezuman. They didn't have liquid. Yeah, they didn't have the cash. Ve'otiv naska aleha. So what did he do? He gave her a piece of silver. Lesof, at the end, yakaramta. Right? The price of the maidservants went up. And therefore, he wanted to retract. Yeah? Imagine, I make the sale, and all of a sudden the price goes up. I want to retract. So Atu lekameh the Rabbi Ami, they came in front of Rabbi Ami. What happened was, now they want to come, and they want to, right? They want to come, and they want to, how do you call this? To retract. Why? Because if the price went up, the seller wants to retract. Atu lekameh the Rabbi Ami, they came in front of Rabbi Ami. Amalehu, so Rabbi Ami went and he told them, Prite enkan, naska enkan. The prutot, you never got them. And the naska was beturat mashkon. So it also doesn't help. So since it doesn't help, so the kinyan is not chal, you're allowed to retract. So the seller retracts, which is a beautiful chidush. What? I couldn't hear you. We learned in a braita. If a person comes and he says, get married to me with a maneh, and then what happened was he gave it to her, and she threw it in front of him to the yam, right, to the ocean. Okay. Or, right, la'ur, she threw it to the fire. Or lechol davar aved, or to anything which is going to get lost. It's not a kedusha. Why? Because that means that she didn't want it. So imagine he comes and he says, she comes, boom. Why? He says, it's not a good kedusha. Why? She doesn't want it. So says the Gemara. It says the Gemara. Right? He says 1 second. Right? But if she would have thrown it in front of him, right? Avi Kiddushin. It's a good Kiddushin. Haka'amrale, because she's saying, right? She's kilu saying, shkil, take it, lo ba'ina. I don't need the money. Right? Is that not true? Which means the question is 1 second. We just said one case. He comes and he gives her the money Kiddushin. She threw it to the sea. She threw it to the fire or to any davar aved. What do we say? Ena mekudeshet. Why? But she's saying, I don't want it. So ask the Gemara, what? If I'm going to throw it in front of him? Meaning, what happens if she took it, but she threw it in? Not like, like she threw it at him. It doesn't, not exactly give it back in the hand. You're very polite. Right? You're very French. Right? No, she threw it. Right? But it was in front of him. Hashadita kameh. She threw it in front of him. But it's not livud, meaning it didn't go to the sea or to. So what? Is it going to be a kiddushin? Hakama, she's also saying, I don't want it also. So says the Gemara, lo mi baya kamar. You're right. We didn't need to say that. Lo mi baya shedetinu kamed. Obviously, she threw it. That means obviously she doesn't want it. He says, 1 second, I would have thought to say, so if it's not going to be a kiddushin, she's obligated to pay him back. Absolutely. So I would have thought to say, kadushe kadish nafsha, that she did agree to get married. So why did she do that then? Why is she throwing it to the sea? So he says, Savra, I want to test him if he's a true Moroccan, right? Or Iraqi or not. He says, why? Does he get angry or not? Exactly. Right? I want to check. He's going to get angry. Olo. What does that mean? She wanted to test the husband. She takes the money, and she throws it. She throws it to the fire. So now, if he's going to come, like what he said, he wanted to slap her. So, Gamar, no. And right? She's not going to get married to him. Right? Right?
But he lost the wife and the money.
100%.
She was never his. He didn't lose anyone.
Yeah. So what happened was, right? So what happened was, he's not anything. So therefore, we would have thought to say she's testing out the waters. She wants to see if he's going to get angry or not. Okay. Kamashmanan comes teach you that no, really, be'emet, we said that she didn't want it. Tanu Rabbanan, also another right. What?
And now he doesn't want to get married with her. He knows she's crazy.
Right. So what happens right now? So then she did it purpose. She did it right. She did a good job. Hitkachili b'maneh. He says, get married to me with a maneh. Tanim le'abba. Imagine right now, she went and she said, give it to my father. Ulavicha. Right? Or she said, right, to your father. Right? Ena mekudeshet. So imagine, a guy comes and he says, you know what? Get married to me with this $1,000. She comes and she says, give it to my father, or give it to your father. Ena mekudeshet. But al menachi kablumli. But if it's going to be, they're going to be their shaliach to accept it for me, and then he went there, mekudeshet. It's going to be a good kiddushin. Okay? So Tana, we learned in a Braita, Abba. Why do we say Abba, my father? To teach you the koach, right, which is brought down in the Reisha. What does that mean? That it's going to be, right, le'avia shelat, to her father. So Tana vicha, and therefore we came and said in Chol Zot, still, it's the Nechshav, that's what we're saying over here. It's not considered as Kamal Kiddushin, even though, I mean, it's basically, she went and she said, give it to my father. That's the koach of it to teach you, it's still not going to be a good Kiddushin. Tana vicha, and why do we say your father? To teach you the koach of the seifa, that if she said to give it to your father, right, that is nothing to do with her, so still we're going to say no, but maybe it was still like a shlichut or whatever it is. And in both cases we said, right, that it's not going to be good, and the only way that it's going to help is al menachi kablum, that they're accepting it from me, like on my behalf. Then it does help. Okay.
What is the strongest?
Get married to me with a maneh. So then she comes and she says, Tenem leploni, give it to somebody else. So now here it's not my father, not your father. Give it to a third party. And a mekudeshet. It's not going to be mekudeshet, right? Why? Because here for sure, you know, like she's just laughing at him. Like, I'll give it to this guy. I give it to this guy. I'm giving it to you to get married. So obviously she was laughing at him. But menachi kablemli. But if it's going to be conditioned that what? That he's going to accept it for me, right? So therefore he went and he gave it to her and he accepted it for her. Mekudeshet. It is going to be mekudeshet utzricha. And you need all these cases. Why? Diashmin and Abba ve'avich. If it was only going to be brought down the first right, that had to do with my father or your father. Hatamud chiyamra. There I'm going to say al menachi kablemli havu kiddushin. The reason why, if he says on condition that he's going to accept them, it's going to be a good kiddushin, is samcha datei laihu, because she has smichut dat on them. At the end of the day, her father, she always relies on her father, and now the future father-in-law, the exact same thing, right? She's going to have dat, right? Smichut dat on the future father-in-law. So Sabra, right? She thought avdin li shlichutai, which means that for sure they're going to do whatever I need or whatever I want. Aval ploni, but if it's going to be a third party, I would say no. And that's why we didn't need to teach you the case of the third party, that it's also going to be mikudeshet. That means that's the chidush. The chidush is that even though it's a third party, she's still mikudeshet, even though it's going to be a third party. The yashmin, and now you're going to tell me ploni, which was the last case only. Over here, she said to them, ploni is not going to be a kiddushin, but she has nothing to do with him. Lemet v'lematana, stam to give him matana. Aval abba ve'avich, but my father and your father, to mekarve to that she does have kiruv dat. Aim matana, maybe it was a matana. If it was going to be a good kiddushin, so that's what we needed both. Right? One more time. If it would have only been written, right, the father, my father and your father, I would have thought to say that it's good. Why is it good? Because there's kiruv dat. Right? At the end of the day, she's close to them. So I would have thought to say she accepted it. That's why the bride that say it's not a good kiddushin, right? Because if it was ploni, for sure it's not a good kiddushin. Why she stopped giving him a present to another guy? So she's making a laughing stock out of him. She's joking around with the guy. You want to give me the money to get married? Give it to this guy. Not kesher. Stop. You know, like kilu get lost. Right? That's what she was trying to say. My father, your father. No, that it should work. Kiman says it doesn't work. Now, if it's going to be the second case, right, to do with the father and the mother, the father, my father and your father, that it was written al dat. What was the word? Al menat shikablumni. That they're going to accept it. There, I would say it works. Why? Because since they're close to him, so for sure they're going to do whatever she wants. But in the case of Ben Adam Shlishi Ploni, I say it doesn't work. That it doesn't work. Tanu Rabbanan, we went to the Braita. Hitkachili b'maneh. Get married to me with a maneh. Tenem al gabesela. She comes and says, put it on top of the stone. Put it on the rock over there. Yeah, and a mekudeshet. It's not mekudeshet. Why? Because kilu, you know, she didn't accept anything. But if the rock belonged to her, then mekudeshet. But then she's married because of like the, you know, like they're the chatzer, right, that acquires it. That if you put it on there, but it belonged to her, so then it does help. Okay? By Rav Bevai, we're almost done. Rav Bevai comes and he asks, right? Sela shel shnehem. What happens right now if the selah belongs to both of them? Meaning the man and the woman. Ma what's halacha? She mikudeshet or not? Teiku, we don't have an answer. Right? Why? Because we're not really sure at the end. Yeah, at the end of the day, he went and she told him, put it on the selah, but she's only a half partner in it. So what happens? We don't have an answer. He kachile bekikar. What happens? He comes and he tells her, get married to me with this kikar of lechem. Right? She comes and he says, teneu lekelev, give it to the dog. Ena mikudeshet. She's not married. But if the dog was hers, mikudeshet. She's going to be mikudeshet for the same thing. But then at the end of the day, right, she's kilu benefiting, right, from it. Okay? Kilu that it went to her because she's obligated to give the money to food to the dog, and therefore kilu it's like that. By Rav Madi, Rav Madi comes and he asks, Kelev ratza chareha. Imagine right now if a kelev, right, is running after her, and he comes. So imagine she's on the run, yeah, and he comes and he tells her, right, get married to me with this piece of bread. She comes and she says, throw it to the dog, right? Mau, what's halacha? For the fact that she was saved because of this piece of bread. So she was gomeret data to be saved, and therefore she's going to acquire herself to him. Or maybe she could tell him, right? No, she could tell him, you're obligated to save me. Midoraita. Nothing to do with the Kiddushin. Why? You see somebody that's getting run after by a dog, right? You have to save them. So she's kilu tricking him into it. At the end of the day, so to the dog, she never accepted the Kiddushin. She just says, you're obligated to save me. So if you're obligated to save me, I don't say whatever you want. I'm not going to pay you anything. Take you. You're right. We don't have an answer. We're not sure. Is it good or not? Hikachili bekikar. When she comes and she says, Hikachili bekikar, right? Of a kikar of lechem. Teneu le'ani. She comes and she tells him, give it to an ani. And a mekudeshet. She's going to be mekudeshet. Fa'afilu ani asamu. Even if the ani was samuch alea, meaning that this ani used to get the parnasa from her, it doesn't help. Why? My time was reasoning. She could tell him, I'm obligated to give to the ani, just like you're obligated to give to the ani. So she was just so it's nothing to do with her. How Gavra David Kamen Zabin, Umre Petachyata says there was a person that he was selling, right, certain types of small objects that they used to come and they used to lachroz, right? They used to come and they used to put like weave them together and all these things, and they used to put it like on the like a necklace. They used to use it. The woman came, she said, and she says, Havli chad shocha, give me one of them. Right? You know what a machroz is? Like one of those like strings of like necklaces or bracelets or all those things. So Amaleh, he told her, if I'm gonna give it to you, you're gonna be married to me. Amaleh, he says, Hava miyava, give it. Hava miyava, 10 me 10. And then he did it. Amar Rav Chama says, Kol hava miyava, lav klum. It's not mekudeshet. Why? She didn't want the kilo. She just said, give it to me. Yeah, kilo. Like kilo. Just give it to me. That's it. You understand? So therefore, that's what she meant. Okay?